Well, good morning, McFly subscribers. So this is what we're going to be tying today, and it's basically the same thing as what I tied on my last video, which was this. It's a little crappie jig or sunfish jig, and what I did here was I used a jig hook with a bead. I want to show you guys something where you can use something like this. Now this is a little bit larger because it is a larger hook, but I'm using one of these. So you're not always stuck to having to use fly tying hooks like this. You could always use jig hooks. And this is going to be a little more kind of what you're used to if you're a spin fisherman jigging for crappie. You're going to be using stuff like this that you bought at the store. I'm going to show you how to make your own. Now you can also throw something like this on a fly rod, but it is a heavier hook. This is what I'm using. It's a 1/16 ounce. And you could get a couple different colors, tie it for whatever you're looking for. I mean, this will work great for bass. If you want to tie in other colors, I mean, this color could work for bass as well, especially smallmouth. Electric chicken, basically, kind of, in a way. So we're just going to put the hook in our vise. And for thread, I'm using Vivus 6/0 in chartreuse. And I'm going to start it right behind the little jig head bump there. You can snap or cut off the waist once it's started. We're going to wind down slightly into the bend of the hook and then back up. And you can see right now that's the start of the bend, and so we're coming right up behind that. Next I got this whiting chickaboo. You can use regular marabou, but I like this chickaboo. It's smaller, it's finer. I think it works a little better for this kind of thing, but I've got it in hot pink. Again, use whatever colors you want. And I'm going to pull two off. We're going to place them together and try to align the tips as best as we can. I find if I wet it, it makes the next portion much easier. And there we go. So we're going to measure this tail out. I mean, you could have a really short little stubby tail if you want. You could have a much longer tail. But watch, too long will foul against the hook here. It'll bend around. The longer it is, of course, the more movement. That's not necessarily always what you're looking for, so you can adjust your tail to however length you want, but I'm going to do roughly from the head into where my thread is. So about the hook shank length. Alright, we're going to make 2 wraps to hold it, like so. I'm going to look at it and decide if we want to come back a little further. The further back you go, the more it's going to push this down because you're going into the bend of the hook. And there we go. I think that's about right. And then I'm going to hold this as I come up, and I'm going to reach just shy of where this little bump is. And we will cut that off close. Now you want some fine point scissors when tying, especially smaller flies like this. Sorry, I'm just cleaning this up. But you also want something very, very sharp. These are mitten scissors by Risen Fly, and I really love them. I think they're some of the best scissors for getting in tight. These have a really fine little tip to them, and they naturally want to stay open. You got to squeeze them, so you hold them like this. You can get in super tight, hold it like this, and just kind of snip, snip, snip. Really, really nice scissors. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up to there. So I came back to just shy of the tail. And then you can decide if you want to add flash or not. I've got this Midge Flash Pearl. It's basically crystal flash, but a smaller size. You could use regular size Flashaboo. This one's pearl. They come in a bunch of different colors, so go ahead and choose whatever color you want. All right, so I'm snipping off 2 strands. As you can see here, I've got the tip aligned. And if you wet that, it's going to keep that together and be a little easier to tie in. So I'm going to measure that out to just shy of the end of the tail. I'm going to wrap that on one side. 3 wraps as we go up. I'm going to wrap this up and around. We're going to then take it over to the other side and wrap down to just where the tail is there. Cut that off at the same length as the previous. And then if you wet it again, it's going to stay together on your desk so you can use it for multiple flies. Next, I've got this chenille. It's a micro-sized chenille. You could use fatter chenille if you want, but I really like it for this, especially getting up over this section here. You don't necessarily want a lot of thickness to the chenille because that's going to really bulk that up. There we go. And I'm using chartreuse. You cut yourself a fairly long section. You want a little more than you think you're going to need. So what we're going to do is we're going to place this underneath the hook shank right up to the bump here. And what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be adding some bulk up this hook shank. So that way it's easier to come up over this bump there. All right, so I wrap that up. I'm gonna go back down once more. And if you do it up underneath like that, see this little bump here? That's gonna help build up the bottom section a little bit more and allow you to jump up over that a little easier. Now I'm just creating bulk again right up by here to make it easier to bump up over, and then you can cross and come up to the head. So chenille is pretty tough, but just to give a little bit extra, we're just going to wipe a little bit of super glue like so. This is Loctite brush on super glue. Makes it a lot easier. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping this. And you want touching wraps up the hook shank here. Now, as you come here, got to be careful. You're going to go up over the bump. Now it's going to want to jump over, and you can see some of that is showing. So let's pull that back a little bit. Let's make sure we've got there we go. So that covered that bump. All right, we're coming right up to the head. I'm going to capture it underneath. Wrap over it on the front, over it on the back, once on the front, once on the back again. And there we go. You can see that's all covered. There is a little bit of a bump there, but that's okay. So I'm going to pull this back. I'm going to get in real tight with these scissors. Trim that off. And then we will clean that section up. Now you could be done here if you want. However, I like adding a collar to this, and actually I'm going to do 2 collars, but let's start with the first one. It's going to be a feather. So this comes from a cape, a hen cape. These are hen feathers. They're not stiff like the rooster feathers. They're nice and soft and they flow really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to pull this back a little bit because I don't need all this length. I'm going to rip off the feathers there and on the other side. So all the fuzzies on the back, you can see these feathers. That's not what we're looking for. And there we go. That's what we're left with. You can check this, see where that's going to go back, the length of those, and that's about right. That's what I want. And then I'm going to grab the tip here. And we don't need a lot of this. So I'm going to pull back like so. Maybe a little bit more than that. Pull back so that way it's just the tip exposed. And I can hold it like so. And then we're going to cut that tip off. And I like to do it at an angle. So angle there. And then come back and cut that section off too. So I leave myself a little tie-in point like so. I'm going to rest that tie-in point right on the hook. Capture that. A couple nice tight wraps. And then you want to get yourself some hackle pliers. I mean, you can do it by hand, but it's a little tougher. So I've got these plunger type hackle pliers. We're going to take that and we're just going to grab the back of the feather there. And then we're just going to kind of stroke these fibers rearward a little bit. We'll kind of train them back a little bit. Going to go all the way up. And then as we pull them back, we can start wrapping over there, over the collar area. Like so. And then we're going to capture this with our thread, over it twice, pull it back, go over it that way, and that should be good. Cut that off, and then you've got some fibers angling forward here, so we're just going to brush everything rearward. and tie over it a little bit. Pull this around, make it easier to see. Pull everything rearward and tie over it a bit, and that'll kind of angle everything back. There we go. And there's that collar. Let me do 2 more. You could whip finish this and finish it off just like that. I'm going to make a secondary collar here, and this is with starburst dubbing. You could use any kind of dubbing that you want. I'm using a hot pink, so it kind of adds to the fly. So you don't need a lot. I'm just pulling off a little bit here. You're just basically pulling out the thread, and you're just twisting this onto the thread like so. Now I've done a bunch of other videos showing how to do dubbing before, so go ahead and watch those if this seems a little confusing to you, if you've not done it before. Most of you that watch my channel regularly already know what to do here, but so we want to dub that on pretty tight, and then we're just going to wind that on and create a little collar. Next, grab your whip finisher, and when you whip finish, use the ball of this jig here to help guide it down into that collar, because you don't want to whip finish over the collar or it kind of ruins the collar. So if you whip finish in front here, and see how that kind of, the ball guides it down into that collar. You can do a 5-turn whip finish. And when you tighten it, there we go, it's tightened. I'm going to pull this up right on top, whip finish so it ends on top. And then we want to secure that. So I've got this is Solarez Bone Dry, or they call it ultra thin as well. It's got a handy little paintbrush. We're just going to paint the back of that to really secure that whip finish. Let that soak in for a second or two, and then it's a UV resin, so you just hit it with the UV light and that hardens it, secures it, and that whip finish should never come loose. And now you are done. Now one other thing you could do is you could come in with a little brush like this or something. You could brush out those fibers, pull them back, kind of adds a little bit more depth to it. But it's up to you. If you want to keep it nice and tight, go ahead. Or brush that out, however you want to do it. And there we go. There is the finished crappie jig on a jig. Come with quite a few, so you can get these. They're not that expensive. Get them at any place, at Walmart even. They're pretty cheap. But I will link also, if you guys can't find them, I'll link some of these below in the description section to where you can get it on like Amazon or something and have it shipped to you. And that being said, every single product I use today will be linked below in the description section. So that way you guys can see the name of everything that I used, all the products, and also links to where you can get them. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. Check out my sponsor, Risen Fly. They're the ones that made the scissors here. They also make hooks and even rods and reels and a bunch of stuff for fly tying and fly fishing. Amazing prices, by the way. For instance, in the last video, I used some beads. Not these exact ones, but tungsten beads are very expensive. And a packet of 25, you can see 25 of them, it generally runs $4 to $6, which is unheard of. I mean, you pay 10 bucks for a packet of 10. They're usually very expensive in fly shops. So already great prices, but even better is they're offering all of you guys a discount just for being my subscriber. So go to www.risenfly.com and type in McFly at checkout for 15% off of anything you buy on your first order with them. That includes their rods, that includes their reels, so great Christmas gift, by the way, is if someone is into fishing and they've got a rod there that's like $100 roughly after the discount, which is really, it's a very good rod. It's not some cheap Walmart brand junk rod, very high quality. In fact, I've got some $600 rods that I would prefer to fish with this $100 rod. It's that good. Okay, so definitely check that out. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that bell notification for future video updates. And if you could hit the like button, it would really help me and the channel out. And I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.